Okay, looks like everyone is pretty much ready for our very first workshop. So I'm not sure if you guys are developers. This is going to be very geeky, right? And if you want to sound smart in front of friends, just keep on saying things like React Native, Redux, Relay, Webpack, higher order components. This really sounds smart, and I think these guys are going to be talking about that too, to some degree. So they're going to sound really, really smart. They really are smart. Some of the best mobile developers in the world that actually help others build better mobile applications. So I think you're not here to hear a lot of talk. You're here to work hands-on. If you're just watching this, that's cool. Feel free to fill up the chairs in front or around. There is limited seating in this area. So
without further ado.
Yeah, so I'll give it up for Tomislav and Domagoj, and get ready for some mobile hacking.
Yeah, Gerger really didn't put any pressure on us right now. Okay, so yeah, let's start. Okay, so we'll talk about how to build your React Native first step, or maybe it's not first if you already were doing it, and we'll do it in 120 minutes. So I guess you all had a good lunch, so I guess we'll be seeing a lot of this. I noticed that a lot of people put some GIFs, so I guess I should put it also. So by the end of the workshop, I hope you'll be awake. Okay, so a little bit about us. First, I'm Tomislav, and this is Domagoj.
Hi, I'm Domagoj.
And we work at Shoutem. I'm technical product manager at Shoutem. What that means is that basically I'm designing product from the technical side, and Domagoj can say for himself.
And I'm a React developer working on React and React Native at Shoutem. So I'm going to be supporting today Tomislav in everything you need. So just feel free to ping me in any moment. If you're stuck with anything, just raise your hand and call me out.
Yeah. And we would like you to introduce yourself a bit. So if everyone can raise a hand who has worked already with JavaScript. Okay, so cool, almost everyone. And with JavaScript ES6, you can just keep the hands. This will go into. Okay, JavaScript ES6. Anyone? Okay, cool. React. Okay, and React Native. Okay, there are some people who worked with React Native. Cool. So I guess there are some differences in the audience. We'll try to make this workshop work for everyone. If anyone will have some questions or anything, you can feel free to stop. This is not a presentation, this is a workshop. So we want you to know and understand and go home with some knowledge. Okay, so a little bit about Shoutem, really little bit. Maybe you heard in the previous talk, which Luca gave just on the main stage. So Shoutem is a builder for mobile apps. We've been on the market from around 8 years. We've built over 6,000 apps that are now published on both Google Play and App Store. And some huge companies and enterprises are using us, like USA Today, Gannett, and so on. We released the new product about 2 months ago. And it got quite a lot of traction on Product Hunt, and we are just dealing now with how to make it work better, how to polish it and everything, so it suits everyone's need that are our target customers. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about workshop. What is this workshop about? Which app we'll be building? So we'll be building a conference app for the Shift conference. So we imagined, I hope you can see here, so we imagined that people would like to have some schedule of the talks. We'll provide you with data, so you don't need to worry about that. Some news about Croatia, so whoever is coming from abroad, they can check out what's happening in Croatia right now. And finally, we want to create a timer which shows how many seconds there are left until after party starts, and today's after party. Okay, so this is the timeline of the workshop. First, it will be about the workshop, and we are just in that section. Then we'll talk a little bit about React and React Native for all those who haven't worked anything inside of it yet. Then we'll do a quick tour about Hello World in React Native. We'll talk about ecosystem in React Native. And finally, we'll leverage the Shoutem platform to build a React Native app. And we'll use not many things from Shoutem platform, very basic things, but just to show you how it works, plus how to create actually an app in React Native. Okay, so as I said already before, the workshop, these are prerequisites. I guess everyone got an email, what they should have installed. These are a must-have, so Node version 7, React Native CLI, Watchman, Git, those are all must-have. And nice to have is Xcode and Android environment. We actually didn't want to force you to install this because just setting Android environment takes around 20 gigs or even more. So yeah, I think it will be enough to have a must-have. So let's stop here immediately and let's see if everyone who has a laptop has it, so we can start downloading it before we continue with the workshop. So does anyone need help with setting this up? Okay, we'll go to check now. And do you know how to check which versions you have and everything? So I'll just go around the tables to see if everything is okay. Okay. Okay, I think we are all set. Just one question. Maybe it would be the best if we would install one more prerequisite, which we would need later. Do you all guys have smartphones here? I guess you do, okay. So, okay, so can you install a Shoutem Preview app? It's called Shoutem Preview. And let me know if you can find it on any of the platforms. I mean, if you have Windows Phone, then you won't be able to find it. Možemo sad odnosno. Hoćemo tu ono pokazati. Yeah, sure.
Feel free to take the Red Bulls. It's for everyone here.
Yeah, we actually don't know if it's for everyone, but since we don't know it, we assume that it is. Yeah. So feel free to take it. Okay, it is. I just wanted to be Robin Hood here, and you're not allowing me.
You guys can take all the Red Bull.
Okay, so this is the app that we'll be building. We have it already built before, so you can see how it looks like. Don't get confused by this dashboard or anything. Oops, we need help? Hey, Grgu. Jel imamo kakve maramice nešto? Ne, tu je bilo. Red Bull je eksplodiran. Red Bull. Yeah. Okay, okay, so here you can see this schedule, the news, and the timer, which counts the seconds until the conference. Until the after part A today. Okay, we'll leave this. So everyone installed Shoutem Preview. We can continue. Everyone found it. Okay, if you didn't, we'll come to you later. Okay, so let's continue. Yeah, this is some Wi-Fi password. Thankfully, I gave it to you only now. Okay, so a little bit about React and React Native for all of those who are not familiar with it. The crash course. So React, what is React? So React is a JS library for building user interfaces. It was built by Facebook in 2013, and it's fourth most shared GitHub repo. And it's used by Facebook, Yahoo, and all these big companies, really huge companies, use it on their websites to build UI. It's actually the most starred JavaScript repo which solves the single-page app issue. So this is the most used framework. So how it all started. So previous to React, there were a lot of frameworks. If you were on my, these are copied slides from the dump days, which was like 1 month ago, where I gave a brief overview also of React and React Native. So this might be all familiar to you. So how it all started, before React was born actually, there were a lot of frameworks out there which were solving the single page app issues, and there were a lot of opinions how the JavaScript should be structured. So I'm sure you heard for many of those like Angular, Backbone, Ember, I don't know, maybe you heard for some other also, and there were a lot of opinions how you should structure your JavaScript on the website to build a single page app. So the single page app is app which actually doesn't need to be refreshed, but everything works like it's an app and another website on the web page. Okay, and all these frameworks had one thing in common, and that was the model. They all had opinion how the model should be structured. And they all had the vision of structuring it in two-way data binding. So what does that mean? That means that model depends on the view, and the view depends on the model. Something changes on the model, the view should be updated. Once something changes in the view, the model should be updated. And these things actually promote mutations. So mutations are these changes of the state. So imagine just how hard it would be actually to reason and to create your app going from state A to state B, or from state B to state C, from C to A, or A to C. So there are only three states, and there are a lot of already spaghetti code there that could be there because of the mutations actually. So the React actually took another approach with unidirectional data flow. So this is how the unidirectional data flow looks like. So imagine you have some initial state of your JavaScript. There is some initial data, real updates, or user is clicking on it. So that's where some action is coming from. And all these actions go into a single dispatcher, which then updates the store. And once the store, which are actually the data, the model of the application, once it changes, the view should change too. So as I said already, it would be very hard to change the view depending if some property in model changes. Then you say, okay, if this property changes, this is how you should change my DOM on a web page. And if this property changes, this is how you should update it then. What would be much easier for us, whenever you would get a new model, a new data, a new state, you would just erase the old state and render a new one. And maybe you're saying now, okay, but this wouldn't be performant. How would you actually re-render whole page once you know that the initial render takes long, and now when anything changes on the website, you would like to actually re-render it? And this is the problem that actually React solves. We would like to have unidirectional data flow because it's easy to reason what's happening in your code. You just write components declaratively. What does that mean? You are not, so there is imperative writing of components and declarative. With imperative, you're actually saying how your components should render something, and with declarative way, you're actually saying what they should be showing. So you just say, okay, I want this component to show, I don't know, list of something, and when I have the state, this is how that state should be shown. And you're not saying how that state should be updated once the state changes, how that component should be updated once the state changes. You just say, for any state that comes here, this is how it should be rendered. And React actually takes care of re-rendering everything that needs to be re-rendered once the state changes. So this is unidirectional data flow. Yeah. So what is React? React is just view in MVC pattern. So it's very easy to plug it in your existing web pages. You don't need to use it. It doesn't define how you should do controllers. It doesn't define how you should do model, although there are some utilities that we'll come across today which work better with React. So you can say that ecosystem is closed. But when React started, it was just, and it still is, just the view for MVC. So it's very easy to plug it in your app that you have already, some web page, and just change actually something a little bit or use it as a one component. It's very easy to start with. It favors declarative components, which I just explained. So it favors what components should be rendering instead of how they should do it. And it favors the immutability. And this is a very important part of React. Why? Because immutability is when you have one state, you're actually not changing the state directly. So if you have, let's say, a to-do list, that's a hello world for, I guess, web pages. So when you have a to-do list and you add something in the to-do list, that's a new state. So before you had some items inside, and now you have the new state. And you're not actually changing the list which contained it, you just issued the whole new state of your app. So the new list with added item. So that's immutability. So you are not changing the state, you're rather issuing the completely new state. And then React, by its reconciliation algorithm, which is basically a smart way which checks what was changed, then it updates the DOM. So how does it look like? Let's say on the first load you have some state of your app. Let's say that there is nothing in the list of to-do. Then someone, and it renders it. And there is a representation in DOM. That's what user sees. And there is also representation in virtual DOM. That's actually what React holds in their memory, but it's a smaller version of a DOM, just so it can compare later. And then you add a new item. That issues a new state, right? So it's not like updated list, but it's completely new list with new add item. And then React goes and renders again everything, but it doesn't actually update the DOM. It just renders virtual DOM. So you have two representations. You have one representation when there wasn't an item inside of the to-do list, and then there you have one representation where there is item in to-do list, and then reconciliation algorithm checks where are the differences in the tree and updates the DOM only there where it's necessary. So that's why it's very performant. You can write declarative components, and it's very easy to code. Basically, that's why React got very famous in very short time. Maybe this was too much of information. We can talk about this as we'll go, so no worries about it. And yeah, all the components have one main function, one main method, and that's actually the render method. And that method tells you what that component should be rendering. And also components can be nested. So if you have one parent component, that render will be triggered first, and then if inside of that render there are multiple other components, their render methods will be triggered consequently as you are going inside of the tree. Okay, so what is React Native? So this was something about React. And what is React Native? React Native is JavaScript library. Again, you're writing JavaScript, and basically you're using ES6, that's the new version of JavaScript, that enables developers to write native apps using React. And how does it do it? So there are two main things in React Native. The first thing is React Native Bridge, which bridges JavaScript code to native side. So you're actually running your mobile app code in JavaScript, and it's calling the native side through the bridge. So you're actually, that's why you're writing native apps. You're not writing some cross-platform apps. You're writing cross-platform apps, but not hybrid apps like how you were doing with, I don't know, PhoneGap, Apache Cordova, which is basically the same thing, or some other things where you were actually having a web view inside where you built a website which looked like mobile app. So you're writing native apps with JavaScript bridge. And one more thing that it provides components that you can write, and those components acts as a facade. Maybe you heard for that pattern, but what does that mean basically is that let's imagine an app that you would like to build, and let's say that it lists movies, so it would need to use list view. And the cross-platform way of doing mobile apps is that you actually you should be writing code only once, and target multiple platforms for that. So here you would use in React Native the list view component, which is exposed by React Native. And depending on the platform, whether you're using iOS or Android, React Native itself would know which component, which native component it should use to render the list. So if you would run your code on Android environment, it would use Android list view. If you would render that list on iOS environment, it would render the UI table view. So this is not something that you would need to conclude yourself. This is something that React will provide by default. So to recap, there are two things that React Native provide. That's JavaScript bridge that you're using to send calls to native side, and that's so that you can use native components. And second thing, you don't need to think about native components directly, but you're using a facade, which are components provided by React Native, such as list view, text, button, and so on, which are shared across the platforms, or which are the same. Okay, one more important thing of React Native is its vision of solving the cross-platform problem, and that can be seen in its tagline, which is basically learn once, write anywhere. And other platforms, which like PhoneGap, had another vision like write once, run anywhere. And why this is a better vision? Because let's just compare iOS and Android operating systems. So both of them are maintained by the different company, Apple and Google, which are attracting their users by different features those operating systems provide. So for instance, like half a year ago or a little bit more, there were some announcements of Daydream, which is basically the VR framework for doing virtual reality in Android. And this is something that iOS was still not having. So how do you make a cross-platform solution for the VR if iOS still doesn't have that functionality? Or that's just one example. There are a lot of features that are different on both operating systems and can be solved in the cross-platform way. But this is something that you would still like to leverage. If you're writing React Native app, why shouldn't you write it for to have virtual reality or some other native feature? So instead, React Native actually allows you to use the native code. So you just learn once how the React Native works, and you write on any other platform. So if it's something that you can use cross-platform, like list view in the previous example, text, button, or some other cases, and it's usually not those simple cases, there are very complicated cases like camera that you can use in a cross-platform way, then solve it in cross-platform way. But if you can't do it, you're not stuck, you're not locked in to framework, go to native code, leverage the native code, or optimize something. It's completely up to you how you will do it. And that's why some of the apps that are using React Native is the most famous app today in the world, and that's Facebook's app. And they are not using it completely. So React Native is still not a feature-complete framework, but it's it's very, very popular. Among the most popular technologies, Luca showed the trending, and we are checking constantly statistics of how many people use it. And but yeah, you can basically leverage React Native what is good for to lower down your costs of development, to solve some cross-platform problems. And for something that is still missing in the native side, you can completely write native. You can hook it in your native app, or you can create a new app and then decide after some time, okay, I want to do something natively. Okay, so this is a little bit about React Native. And what we should do now is we should go through Hello World on the React Native documentation. This was all theory for now, but let's go into more practice. So, yeah. Okay. So I think the best way to go for this is I would just say that we should go through the basics here. And maybe it would be the fastest if I would just go and I would read it to you. And I would explain, and you can really feel free to stop me at any point if something is not explained enough or something you don't understand. Okay, so when you land on React Native, you can see a lot of things here, and here are some apps that are using it. So Instagram, Airbnb, Tesla, Walmart, Discord, there are a lot of apps already built on React Native. And on the getting started, you can see how you can actually work on your mobile apps. And here you can select which operating systems you have. One important thing to immediately mention is if you want to build iOS app on Windows, unfortunately you can't do that, or on Linux. But there are some ways that you can do it, but you cannot debug it, at least. So Shoutem actually provides you and helps you that you can actually build iOS app on Windows and Linux, but it's hard to debug if you're actually doing native side. Okay, so these are some dependencies that you should install, and we already installed those. So Node, Watchman, React Native CLI, and Xcode. That's everything for the Windows side. And Xcode you need if you are going to run it locally on simulator, or if you're going to build your app locally and then sending you to your device. But we'll actually preview our app on our device without having Xcode, and I'll show you soon how that's possible. And if you're, let's say, building for Windows and Android, you would need Node, Python, JDK, and there is a whole bunch of things that you need to set up for Android development environment. And once you're even done with this, there are a lot of build tools, APIs, SDKs that you need to set up. So it's quite tedious process, and it has, I think, more than 20 gigs. But I think some of you have it, so they can even try this out. But yeah, let's just go to tutorial. Okay, so this is actually here React Native Web, which actually allows you to write React Native and test it on the web. It's not feature complete for React Native site, and obviously you can't leverage the native things of React, but we can test some here things. So this is how you write in React. This is ES6. So let's just see. Okay, here's some description on what ES6 is. Okay, so ES6 or ES 2015 is a standard for JavaScript, which enriched JavaScript with some features which, by the community's feedback, JavaScript was missing, such as import, from, class, extends, arrow functions. I don't know. There are a lot of things that there are still in JavaScript included. So we can see immediately here. So import is just importing the component from other module called React, and this is there are two ways of importing things. This is default import. This is named import, but you don't need to worry about that for now. It's just importing things from React and React Native, and this is a new class, Hello World app, which is registered at app registry. And app registry is basically the starting point of every React Native app. We are just registering the root component, which will handle everything, everything else. And the component that we created, extends component, which is from the React. So it actually gets some lifecycle methods and so on, but you actually don't need to even do this. Component is just a function which takes some properties and renders some elements, but not to confuse you, just extend from component. And then it has the render method. This is how you actually do a method inside of a class in ES6. And it returns text, which is component. Again, this is a facade from React Native. You can see it here. And this will be rendered in Android text or UI, iOS label or UI label, something like that. And here you can see Hello World. We can add multiples. So if I would go and just copy this wouldn't work because you need to have one component being rendered. So I need to import the view. And let me just put this here, view. So the easiest way to play around with React Native is like this. Okay. So now you see free Hello World things on the right side. You see that it's very fast to test it like this, and it's very good for passing the tutorial. So compared to web, text would be, I guess, span, and view would be div. So this is something that you can see also analogy with web. And one more maybe confusing thing that you see here is that you can write this XML-like code in JavaScript. This is actually called JSX, JavaScript XML. and some people in community are against this. You don't need to use it. You can use React create component, but it's usually harder. So this is like inserting templating language inside of JavaScript, and it's very easy to do so. So you have a component which takes care of how it's rendered and how the code and the business logic should be. Okay, so that's basically the hello world. Components can take props. So if you were to write one component, let's say image component, which we already included here from React Native, you would like to customize that component with some properties. So for image component, that's the component which handles the rendering the image. And it obviously needs to take some source. So this is the property that it's taking. And if you want to pass a value inside of the property, you need to enclose it with curly brackets, these ones here. And you can actually put any expression inside, so a JavaScript expression. And here is another property, which is style. This is a reserved property. So if you want to style your, okay, here is the style, so maybe we should say it there. But yeah, here is style, and we are passing it width of 193 and height of 110. Okay, so anything else to mention here? Okay, this is, I guess, easier example. You see here two components created, greeting and lots of greetings. So this greeting component is actually customizable through the prop called name. And this is how you can use it. So in templating language, you can write just string inside, and when you would like to use something from your JavaScript code, you again enclose it inside of the curly brackets, and you can again put any JavaScript expression here. So you can you can add here numbers, you can call functions and so on, as long as it returns value. This is the reserved word. This means the instance of the component which was initialized here. So you can see here, this is a class, and these are 3 instances of that class. And each has a different dis, it's referenced to in memory. These are the props of the dis, and you can access the name. Okay? And here we are using it. Once again, you cannot expose multiple components in the render function. You need to have one root component exposed. And here we have the view, which is like a div on the web. And we are using 3 components, greeting with their name. So here we are passing a property. This is how you pass the property. And you see here that we didn't need to put curly brackets, although I think you can do it. Yeah, because string is just also expression which returns string. But it's not needed to do it for string. And I think also it's not needed to do it for number. I'm not sure. We can try. Or no, it is. Okay. Okay, so you see now hello 2, right? And this obviously renders this prop name and this should be string. This is immediately casted in automatically in string. Okay, so we had this. So this is how we are passing the value inside of the prop, and here we are using it. Okay, and here again app registry. Okay, nothing to mention here. Okay, so the props are not changeable. So the parent component actually passes the props to its children. And in order to change something in a component, you need to have state. And state is basically encapsulated and local to the component. So you can't share the state with other component. You can pass it as a prop, but state is encapsulated within one component. And this is where you can see how actually React and React Native works. So we should take care on this code because we'll need it soon to create our timer for the conference after party. Okay, so let's see how it works. So once again, let's repeat this. Once the state changes of component, React itself will know what should be re-rendered. So let's see, we have here Blink app, let's start by this, which uses the view and Blink component, okay. And it's passing the text, which is a prop, okay. So we can see that prop here, this props text, and this is the blink component. Okay, we create some constructor which is getting the props from the component, and we are calling super constructor, which is basically in the component. You don't need to do that, but if you want to access the properties inside of the constructor, then you need to do it, and it's usually recommended to do it here, so just do it. And this is the only place where you can actually initialize your state. So in constructor, you can initialize your state, and you're doing it by setting this.state is equal to JavaScript object show text true. So in the beginning, we would like to show text, and we are immediately setting the interval where inside we are passing the callback function. This is again something from ES6. This is the arrow function. So here you can see that it doesn't accept anything as arguments, and it basically doesn't return anything. What it will return is undefined, since it even doesn't have the return. But this is what we are calling inside of the function. So on every 1,000 milliseconds, that's 1 second, we would like to update the state to be the opposite what it was before. And since it's Boolean, every 1 second it will be true, false, true, false. And then inside of the render method, we are putting a display whether so if the state show text is true, then we'll pass the text that should be shown. That's a prop that is passed by the parent component. And if the show text is false, then we'll just render nothing, but we can change that as well. Let's say that we want to render A. So you see that now it's changing from nothing to A or A to B. And nice thing about React Native Web is that it automatically updates. Okay, and yeah, we are returning this inside of the curly brackets and text. Okay, so maybe some questions until now? No questions? Okay, cool. So, yeah. So this is how you can, so you cannot, here you can't say this state is equal to something. You should say this set state to set the state, and then React knows that something has changed on its state, because as I said, you don't, there is immutability. You don't change state directly. You just issue another state. And there are a few things that you should know here that are not documented here. The first one is that actually the state is merged. So if I would want to do something like this, show text, show picture, let's say. Okay. When I would set the state here, and since I'm passing only the object of show text, the new state will actually get merged with the previous state. So that means that show picture would be constantly there. So you don't need to worry about all the properties inside of your state. You should be only worried about the top level ones that you want to actually change. And it goes this by shallow, checking the tree. And the another thing that you need to be aware of is that React sometimes it basically decides by itself, changes the state asynchronously. So when you actually change the state by set state, it doesn't immediately change the state, but it actually waits some time if you'll be again calling anytime set state soon, so that it can set the state in a batch. And then it takes all these set state arguments, merges it, and merges it with the previous state of the application. And that's why you need to do basically set state and not through state. That it won't work. Okay, there is a mention of Redux here immediately. So what is Redux? How many of you have heard about Redux? And how many have used it? Okay. So Redux is state management library that is used in React and React Native, and it's used even in some other frameworks like Angular. And it basically defines the pattern how you should be changing the state of your application. There are some other state management libraries like Flux, which was developed by Facebook, but it's basically obsolete now because they also promote Redux, Facebook, I mean. And there is also Mobix. Mobix is like easier way of state management, and Redux is more like sophisticated than Redux was before, so I guess more people use still Redux. But basically it defines how you should change the global state of your app. If you see here we are only changing state inside of one component. And that means if you want to have the state of your app, the top level component would need to have the state for every other component if you would like to have one global state. In order to solve this problem, there is a Redux library, which actually holds the state separately from the components, and components can actually like register to some parts of the state. So React even knows, okay, that component is registered to this state. When that state changes, I should re-render that component and everything that is nested inside, and I should see what was changed and update that. So we won't use here Redux because we wouldn't have enough time. Okay, it's already 45 minutes past for me talking. Yeah, I guess we need to a little bit hurry. But yeah, if you'll have some questions about Redux, you can ping us after this conference, after this workshop. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit more how you do the styling. You do it with style sheet create, although you don't need to do it. You can, it provides you some API with seeing if everything was right, but you can basically pass the empty object inside the properties that you are sending. So here we are having, let's say, here we have lots of styles component which has view and text, and it receives style, which is reserved again property for the component. And inside we are passing the, if we were to check text component, okay, it's here, it's API. We would see that which properties it has and which style does it take. So it inherits everything from view style. We can check it also here. And inherits some other things like color, font family, font size, font style, font weight, and so on. And all of these are probably familiar with name, and this is on purpose because React Native wanted to have the same styling and everything as CSS. So instead of having a snake case like this, you're having a camel case. Okay, so this is how you do styling. Okay, height and weight you can set directly, or you can do it with using Flexbox. Anyone used Flexbox here? Okay, some people. So Flexbox is layout. It's like style for doing type for doing layouts on CSS. So you can check Flexbox. It has some. It's easier to create your components and say how they should be actually dynamically changed as your screen size changes. Whether the orientation of the screen changes, what should be done with the elements for which there is not enough space on the screen, what should be the main direction of rendering them, how much of a space in terms of ratio your components should take, and so on. We won't do much with Flexbox, but if there will be any questions, you can always ask us. Okay, so text input. Yeah, let's just go really fast here. So text input. We are sending, so the property can also be the callback function. This is a callback function which accepts the text and sets the state to the new text. And this is something again from the JavaScript. If you just set it like this, then that basically means that the property is the same name as the variable. Okay, scroll view is component which you can use for scrolling, but it's not very performant. So everything that you put inside of the scroll view will be rendered immediately. So if you have a huge list, don't use it, but use list view instead, which renders somewhat similar things on the screen, but you can create it that it actually renders different data. And the nice thing about list view is that it actually is performant, and it only renders what can be currently shown on the screen and caches another thing, so it's nicer to scroll. And obviously in React Native you can do networking. such as calling the API of some other API or your own API. You can do it with fetch. So fetch API is something new in JavaScript, not so new, but relatively new. And it basically simplifies the calling some API. Basically, you don't need to use any more HTML, XML, HTTP requests and AJAX. Basically, it is AJAX, but it's just using fetch, and it's very easy to construct it. So this is one call of the endpoint. This is a method, HTTP headers, and what's passed into body. Okay, so basically we passed and WebSocket support. Okay, so basically we passed everything. I wouldn't like to go into too much of details. If you'll have problems, we'll obviously be circling around to help you guys work on this app. But yeah, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, one more thing that I promised to talk about is the ecosystem of React Native. Really short. There are a few things that you should be knowing in React Native if you're starting. So obviously there are more editors that you can use. Sublime, Visual Studio Code. We are using usually Visual Studio Code internally in company because it's open source and free. Sublime is also free, but you basically need to pay the license if you want the official version. And Nuclide is very interesting here because Facebook developed it, and it's basically a plugin for Atom, GitHub's editor. There are more things for state management. I already talked about this. There are type checkers. So in JavaScript, there is no type checking. So if you want to have it, you can use Flow, which was developed by Facebook, or TypeScript developed by Microsoft. Both are very good tools. There are some of UI toolkits. If you don't want to start creating components from the scratch, yeah, you can use some UI toolkits that are already out there. These are sorted by their popularity. So native base is the most popular one, the most used one. Then there is React Native Elements, and then there is one toolkit that we developed, Shoutem UI toolkit. There are a lot of tools that you can use in React Native. Expo, which basically helps you with onboarding in React Native. Ignite, create React Native app. There are tools that you can use for publishing, such as Code Push, which allows you to change your app without going to resubmission process again. So if you change something in JavaScript, you can send that change directly over the wire to the app, so your users wouldn't need to download new app, and you can use Fastlane for the faster initial submission to the store. And then there is a platform, Shoutem, and here now we'll build an app and to show you how you do this. Okay, finally, we came to Shoutem. So, quick thing, what we did for all of you guys who didn't quite get it from the presentation. So, Shoutem's focus is to become WordPress for mobile apps. We have the whole platform is basically open sourced for developers. And what do I mean WordPress for mobile apps? The idea is, the analogy is the same with WordPress. So how you build a website on WordPress using plugins, that's the same how you build a mobile app on Shoutem using smaller modules, which we call extensions. And there are a lot of those which we created. Luca was using some of them inside of his app, and we should also be using some of them inside of our app that we'll be building now. So here are some of them. This is how the app development process looks like, what Luca was already talking about. You create app, you reuse extensions which you need, you customize what you would like to be more unique, and you develop your new things which actually will be used by your users. So there are a lot of things that get repeated over and over inside of the apps, like 80% onboardings, authentication, push notifications, analytics, ads. You shouldn't be re-implementing those. You should just use some modules which are already there and implement the specific things which is good for your app. Okay, so we developed a builder where you can manage your app and where non-technical people can manage our app, and this is something that we'll be using as well. And once again, here is the app that we'll be building. So let's basically start building it, I guess. Okay, so you have all your laptops ready. We'll basically let you develop things. I'll just lead you through the process, how it should look like. Okay, so First thing that you can go is to open Shoutem GitHub IO. So you should be seeing this page. And the whole story that I just said in like 2 minutes about Shoutem is written here, about the extensions that we have and so on. And let's actually talk a little bit about how the app should be. So just to give you a quick heads up. So there are 2 extensions that we can reuse and that we would like to reuse. So the first one is the schedule. I can show it here, right? So let's just see. Okay, you can see it here, yeah. Okay, so it's loading it. Let's see how the app should look like. This is running on Appetize. This is basically the simulator for React Native apps. It basically runs the iOS, then it records it, and when you click on it, then it sends that event to iPhone. Okay, so I hope this will work. See, it's still loading. I guess the internet will do us a favor. But okay, nonetheless, let's talk free here. So this extension is reused, this extension is reused, and this is actually developed extension. And I would like us to focus on developing new extension because this is basically doing React Native. So how you would reuse this schedule is that here is the CMS, something that you'll put in CMS through CSV file, comma separated values. We prepared it for you. And here is the RSS feed from Total Croatia News, I believe, right? And we'll also give you the URL that you can use. But let's focus on developing this extension. So how this extension should be working. So this here you can see what we have. We have news. And okay, this something. What happened? Okay. I hope this. Yeah, it was just spinned. Now we need to go again. But okay, nonetheless, when this is spinning, let's start by documentation. So, what you should be all doing now is pass through getting started. It basically tells you how to get started with Shoutem. It will ask you to register on our builder to create your account. And so basically you can start using, you obviously need to also install our CLI tool, which helps you build extensions, apps, and so on. But yeah, without further ado, just start reading it. Everything should be self-explanatory. So try to build your first extension there. It's basically Hello World extension. Once you do the Hello World extension, will help you do the timer and everything else inside of the code. Okay, so yeah, let's start. So for anyone having questions, we'll start circling around so you can ask us. Sorry? Yeah, just create one like that.
Aha, no dobra, nie jak określą konkretnie
Just one important thing to mention immediately, as we released around 2 months ago, don't use www.shoutem.com, use newshoutem.com, okay? So we have 2 websites basically which you can use, and we are just seeing the how the new website performs, and we still didn't redirect all the traction to the new website. So we have new Shoutem.com. Use that. And Builder is on builder.shoutem.com, as you can see here also.
Da, mogu ja sam Budi se pokazati, please. Možeš raditi, to sve da smo mislim, možemo to pričati poslije. Jer ono mogu pokazati što se radi. Zašto je ono praktički direktno dobro? Ono, kad god želiš, možeš ono reći, ok, ovo piše na to. A ti si iOS developer, sve možeš. Da. Recimo, mi stvari koristimo iz iOS-a i Androida, recimo, iskoristimo jedan cijeli SDK, Shoutem. Tako da ono, možeš uzeti, znači, nativni kod, eksposit ga u JavaScript i onda i kad slaviš JavaScript i kako hoćeš. Znači, bio možeš se mogu smo uvijek na JavaScript od njega.
Okay guys, I've just put a link over here. It's a bit of a link for our CSV file, which contains some event data, which you can then import to our CMS and then use it to render the events on the screen.
Yeah, but just keep going from getting started now.
Yeah, just pass through the getting started, you'll get there.
Yeah, this is something for later. Okay, so we have still 1 hour of the workshop around. Just to tell you once again what we are doing currently. So you all go to Shoutem GitHub bio, which is our developers portal on how to do React Native apps with Shoutem. And then you go on Getting Started and you just follow the Getting Started tutorial. This will basically lead you how to create your app on the builder, how to create your first extension, how to install it inside of the app, and how to run it on the preview and on the phone. Basically, this should be the output. This is what you should get on your phone, hello world, right? Okay, and then after that, we are starting to do timer in React Native. Sorry. So just a quick wrap up of first 20 minutes. So few guys are already done with the first step. So they have the phone which writes hello world. So what's the idea of this getting started? So it's for you to understand how to build actually this module, the extension, what is a shortcut, what is a screen. If those terms are not defined to you, you can always ask me and I can explain it to you. So what is a shortcut, what is a screen, how you can expose this to the app, and how you can use it in the app. So all these guys already passed that. So I think that they should start doing the second part. If you're still doing this getting started, just go through it and ask me for help. I'll come and explain you. But for all the other guys, they should be starting to do the timer inside. So let me just load the app to once show you how it looks like. So just a second, it's loading the app. Okay, I need to refresh it. So the timer was already explained in React Native documentation. It's, where was it? In the state. So, okay, so here you see how you can actually set the interval and how you can set the state and how it should be updated in every 1,000 seconds, at every 1,000 milliseconds. So what you should be doing now is you should take the date of today's after party, which is happening today at 9 p.m. Our time zone is UTC +2. This is something that you should use in JavaScript. Then you should be taking, you should update the state to reflect the current date each second. So each second, your date inside of the state refers to the number of seconds passed from the echo time, from the 1970s, right? And then you should do the difference between the seconds passed for the after party start and the seconds passed from the now time, and you should show it on the screen. And this is how it should look like. Okay, it's something is going bad for my preview. This sometimes happens, but I can show you here. So this is how it should look like. There is, okay, actually there is a done code. Did you put already the code of the extension also up? Okay, yeah, don't put the code extension still. So we have done code, we can share it with you, but try to make it yourselves. Just share this image, okay?
Okay.
So try to make this. So image which writes seconds until after party, and then it counts the seconds until 0, right? Okay, so it's explained in the React Native here, how you can do the state and updating, and some documentation you can even find on the React documentation, which is even better one. So I'll go to get started. Just to really show you really quick. Let's see if it's here. Okay, it's not here. It's probably here. Okay, yeah, it's here. So here on the state and lifecycle on React documentation, you can see how you can use component did mount method. This is the lifecycle method which you get with React component. And component will unmount, where you should clear your memory and where you should clear your timer. So actually the code is already here, but you still need to do some of the tweaks to get it right to work with how many seconds until the conference. Okay, so this is what you should be doing. Check this and check the state. State here in React Native and state and lifecycle in React documentation. So, okay, you can start with this, and I'll be helping now people with getting started and everything. And Domagoj will upload the picture, this DJ picture, under this link, so you can use it. You still don't need the CSV and RSS. We'll do that in the last 10 minutes. Hey, just a quick heads up. If you're having problems with testing your code, and since probably a lot of you don't have a complete environment set, so just test your code inside of the React Native tutorial. So just click here, look what you can do. So I can start writing a little bit for you how it would look like. So here is the React Native component, and what I would do here, I would start writing, okay, I need component did mount. That's the lifecycle method that will be called once the components get mounted. And okay, I also need to have a constructor, right? Which I'll pass the props, and I also need to call the super with props. And here I want to set the date, right? So the date should have the current, so current date we can call it. Date should have the current seconds, and this is something that you can get like this. So new date get time, and this will get the seconds that has passed from the 1st of January of 1970. In the
Since this is JavaScript, I guess all JavaScript.
Yeah, all JavaScript works. Yeah, this is complete JavaScript environment. Yeah. And in component did mount, you would generally like to update it. So what you would do here is you can say timer ID, because we'll need the reference to timer ID. I'll just give you little bit of help, and I won't go further. So, okay, we'll set the timer ID, and we want to call the set state, right? Actually, set interval. And we'll pass here the arrow function. And every 1 second, so every 1,000 milliseconds, we want to call the this.tick function. Let's call it tick. And let's implement the tick method. And here inside, this tick is not a function, although it is. This is, I think, this is error inside of the React Native Web. I guess it can't recognize that it actually is, so maybe I can do this tick. Okay, we'll see if this will work. And inside here, you can actually set state. Actually, I can do it here even. Set state to the new date, right? Current date. Yeah, I see now that this is not working in the current date, new date, get time in the React Native Web. But it should be working. I guess it's not recognizing it. Set interval. Yeah, this should be working. Okay. Set interval. Where is tick? There is no tick. Yeah, but I'm not calling even tick anymore. Oh, here. Let me just reload this. Maybe it got into some state. Okay, cool. Yeah, it works. So yeah, if you get into some state which won't work, just refresh the page. So, and here is some of the code that you can use. But yeah. Okay, so I guess we'll soon need to start to wrap the conference, so I'll just start writing something. So we need to do the, what do we need? After party start, right? So what do we need here? So the day is Thursday, 1st of June 2007, and this it starts at this time, get time, right? So this is the seconds that has passed, okay. So now we have seconds. We'll also need to clean this up. How is it? Clean interval, right? Okay. Clear, sorry, it's clear. Okay, and what else? So let's render. So we can write.
Could you explain the consequence of not using
This amount and mount. So basically, it will stay in your memory, and then the reference stays. No one is using it, and yeah, if the screen is still somewhere cached, it will stay, and you basically don't need this timer. This is, sorry?
It will be a memory leak.
Yeah, but basically you don't need it for timer. This is just a good practice for bigger things. So here we write expression, and I think, wait, get time will write in milliseconds, right? Yeah, it will write in milliseconds, so I need to delete it, I think. Okay, so here. Should this be working? Okay, this is working. Okay, this is what you should be doing, yeah. Okay, I forgot to muff floor it. Okay, cool. So these are the seconds until after party. So this is the timer implementation. You would still need to have, let's see if we can implement it immediately here. So you would still need a view which would wrap it. I mean, this is really not good practice to program in this, so don't do that usually, generally. Okay, so this. Okay, Flexbox is a little bit different in React Native. You'll see that Flex property usually has 3 properties, and one is basically for stretching it completely in the parent. So you can see what happens if I don't do that. It only takes the place which it's taken by its children. So I need to take it all. And one more thing that we can add, but I'm not sure if this will work in this, but we could try. Let me just. Okay, what do we need? Image, right? And we need some image source. Yeah. Let's see the API. I think it's like source URI. And now we need to find that picture somewhere. Maybe we can find it where Domagoj put this thing. Can I load it for here? So let's see if it will work. Okay, maybe I can load it immediately for here. So what's the? I can't get it. Right. Yeah, but I want it hosted online. Yeah, I expect element. Yeah, I can't do it. Never mind. What do I do now? Okay, so let's see if this will work. Oops. Yay. So, yeah, this is something that like you should have gotten. Okay, and this is the code that you should put inside of your extension, inside of your screen. So I'll just leave it here so you can see it. Yeah, I'll actually copy it. Oh, actually here is all written. Yeah, here. Okay, so this is something that you should got. Yeah, let's see if you need some help still. Does anyone need help with this? Okay, I'll come, yeah. Okay, but let me show you just quickly how you would actually build your app now, once you have this. So I can go through all the process now, okay? So, let's create a new app inside of the builder. It's being created. Then it already has some things inside. Let me delete that. Then we said that we would like, let's see how we would like the app to look like. Okay, it's like this. So we want to have a schedule of the talks. So if I go here, I know that since I work at Shoutem, I know that they should use events. Okay, so here are events. I can create items. Okay, here I click on the create, and this will bring me to the CMS interface where I can add items manually. or I can import them through CSV file. Here it is. Let me import it through CSV file, which Domagoj prepared. So I can just go here, click download. Okay, it's downloaded. Let me go here, import it, comma separated values, browse. Yeah. Okay, it's here. Let's import it. Now, once you have this CSV imported, you need to do the mapping. So what do I need to do? Map name. What do I select?
Just once. Go back.
Back?
Go back.
Okay, I need to import it again.
And just select every day.
Okay. So it's synchronized, but yeah, okay. Name, start time, end time, and image URL to image, right? So this is all. Okay, so let me import it. Now we are importing CSV. Okay, it's imported here. What else do we need? We need the news RSS, which will use total Croatia. So what is the? Hey, how is the RSS called? Total Croatia? News. Yeah, news, I think. Yeah, Total Croatia news. And this will recognize immediately if the website has RSS. Yeah, so we want RSS feed. We want to upload that. And I already created extension before for this. So if I go here to under extensions, and if I go to extension marketplace, under my extensions, I will be seeing that extension. Okay, and it's that one. I'm not sure which one is it. No, okay, do you know maybe which one is it? Since we named it the same, thankfully. Yeah, is it new one, or is it the one that you were working on?
I think it's the mine.
Okay, let's try it. No. Okay,
Then the other one.
yeah, never mind. And then you would install the extension here. I saw that you got this, and then you would click preview here, and it will load your app, how your app looks like. And one thing that you can still leverage on the platform is the themes. So here is the app being loaded. Yeah, here we have some problems with CSV, I think. And yeah, I did. And here are the news RSS. Here is the style. We can customize it. So instead we can use, let's say, Rubicon R, apply theme, reload it, and we'll get immediately the update. So, and yeah, here it is. And now we would still add the shift conference extension, and we would have also the timer. The code was basically there. So yeah, I guess that's it. I hope it provided some good information for you. How to build apps, how to build apps in more modular way. All the extensions that we were using now are open sourced, and you can find them on Shoutem extensions. Here is the code for every of them. You can customize literally anything. Documentation, as we already saw, is on Shoutem GitHub IO. Basically, here is documentation for everything. If you want to know more details on the structure of extension, you can go to My Extensions, how to create it, how to publish it. Once you're done with your app, you can also publish it using the Publish button here, or you can also do it manually. We have documentation for that as well. Okay, so yeah, I guess we don't have so much time for Q&A, but we had Q&A all the time. And you can find us, please do, at the conference and ask us anything that you're interested in, how to do programming in general, or how to do React Native or anything. Thanks for showing.